Kathy Conrad has been a member of our guild for 8 years, and she first heard about the guild going to an art show put on by the guild, and she's been a good member ever since. She's done a couple other demos, one on pastel, one on fixing up old frames from Goodwill and other places. And she's been doing art as long as she could remember, and won her first blue ribbon at age 6. And she's gave up art for a little while to raise her family, and after retirement she wrote feature stories for 5 community newspapers. I didn't know that. And she also designed handmade handbags that she sold regionally and nationally. She returned to artwork 15 years ago after carpal tunnel surgery, which didn't slow you down.
Well, it was
much at
making
all.
those handbags.
Oh.
Put my hands to sleep
yeah.
for, it was like a year. Even after the surgery, it was 6 months before I could get feeling back in my hands. So that was when I went back into my art.
And she's done the sand dollar ornament painting workshops with Shirley Lynn for the past 3 years.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
okay.
Well, I might mention when she said I took a break to raise my family, it was like a 20-year gap between me painting and doing art and just not doing anything. And I came back and started doing art again about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago. So it was like if my son hadn't said, "Mom, would you paint something for me?" I may never have gone back into it, so who knows. But one of the things that I have always liked doing, and as I was saying, painting out of the box, but painting on the box, is to use my creative skills to paint on items that are not canvas. I mean, I've done murals. I don't know how many here have done it. I can't do it anymore. It seems like when I overdo myself, I end up in the hospital. And that did it to me too. So that was my last mural, was doing 2 bedrooms for 2 kids. But anyway, what I'm going to do today is walk through some of the ideas and some of the things I've done. And then after I've done that, I'm going to demo a few ideas or suggestions on how to prepare your surfaces and things to look for, things to avoid, and make your life easier by learning from my mistakes. So one of the first things I'm going to pass around is I had some, it's like when I said I would do this, I thought, I don't have anything because I've sold everything. So I went and put some photos together. So I've got several photos here. I've got 3 different packs. We'll pass them down the row. But the first 4 are kind of a progressive photo of the lid of a box that I did last year that is now gone. And then, of course, the last one is the completed one. But I wanted to give you an idea of the progress of it. And then also in here are other items that I have painted on. And I'm going to pass them around first because I'm going to refer to these things, some of the things that I've done. And I want you to be able to have seen these photos and that you will know what I'm talking about. Then I have a close up and start calling things away before you get a chance to look. One of the things is that you have to be, if you're going to be doing these items, you're going to have to be prepared in terms of equipment and ways to achieve your goal. And one of I have a drill press, how I drill my holes in my sand dollars. I have a bandsaw. So if I need to cut anything, like for instance, this particular box, this painting in this box is a piece of wood. Picked up at the Dollar Tree, measured it off, cut it off, gessoed it, and then painted my work on the box or on the wood. So there's all different types of things equipment that I have, but you can maybe use a serrated knife. I've done that before to work on pieces of wood. But one of the things that I have found really useful is just good old-fashioned screwdrivers and grit. The sand dollars that I paint, I have a drill press that I very gently press down, and the drill comes down and goes through. Sure, I can tell you she has broken many sand dollars trying to achieve a hole. And one of the things that I have done is I have several screwdrivers, and I just start out at the top with a Phillips screwdriver and start twisting with the pressure on the back where my finger is. Twisty, twisty, twisty. And pretty soon I get to a point where I might want to go to a different size. And then I'll use a bigger Phillips screwdriver. The thing is that when the reason you have your finger on the back of it is to feel for when it comes through. Because from that point on, just about there, you're going to have to reverse your sand dollar. And some of these things, it's interesting, it takes a long time to go through. Other them are really lightweight sand dollars.
Yeah, could you use them all, or
You can do whatever you want. You can use a paring knife, as long as you can achieve it so that it grinds through. And as you can see, I have a little hole in the back, and now I continue to, with pressure, if I wanted, and I broke it, but if you want to do it,
no.
now see, I made a liar out of myself. I've only broken like 4 in my lifetime, and I've done over 600 of these. But anyway,
I grumbled too much.
that's, yeah, so you can mess with it and get it hole big enough as you want for whatever kind of a ribbon you're going to put through it. But usually, when I put the holes through it, it's after I have cleaned them and gessoed them and sprayed them on both sides with a clear enamel. That makes them a little bit stronger, so when I start drilling,
When you clean them,
they don't break. And I
you
like.
said when you clean them. How do you clean them?
Right here, I have some
Okay.
several sheets. It's a process. I mean, I gather my own sand dollars at the beach. I bring them home, I soak them in bleach, swish them around in water for a while, because get the bleach out. This last time I had a raccoon come and visit and take about 4 of my big sand dollars. I said, well, I hope you got a stomach ache, because it was bleach that they were soaking in. Oh yeah, so anyway, one of the surfaces I've done is actually on canvas. And if you can come up here and touch it, it's a relief, and it's by using texture paste. And I got a recipe here. Anybody wants it, you can get it online. You can buy texture paste. And but this is a homemade recipe for texture paste. But I went in and I used a clear squirt ketchup bottle, you know, that you can buy to create some of what I did. Used my fingers, of course, I love my fingers. In fact, I am sure that on most of my artwork you'll find fingerprints. But that is another way of creating a different kind of a surface, and that can be applied to boxes or anything else, as long as when you're done, it's to a surface that you have made so that it will stick. Sometimes you'll have to rough up your surface so that it will stick more, and then when you put your spray on it, as long as you've achieved some kind of way that it's not going to move off, and then you paint over it. One of the things, painting out of the box, but this is a box, and I get a lot of my boxes at Goodwill, okay? They cost, if you go on a certain day, you can get a senior discount. If you go on a day that the label on the box is red, and their special of the day is anything on red, is 50% off, you can pick up some really good deals, including frames and whatnot. I try not to spend more than $5 on my boxes, but this box, instead of a painting, I took and had a photo of my work, and I spray painted the box after I cleaned it up. I made a new fresh silk bottom for it. I'll talk about that too. And of course, when this falls down, there's a place to slip your photo or your painting. This has a plastic top, but when you do a painting, which I'll show over here, you don't use the plastic top over the top of it. So this is one, and again, these are like for gifts. You're looking to give somebody something that's basically inexpensive, and it's a piece of you. that goes with it. These are painted on glass, and I will apologize. I got a little carried away with my spray paint on this one, but this was a piece of glass that I painted. As you can see, it's clear. And it gives off kind of a 3D look when you paint it like this. And there is a process that I use to put this on there. This one I did by just first painting the background with gesso and then painted or drew my design on the front. And how I do the design, I have the fortune of having a computer program, and I can create all kinds of designs and print them off. So you may not have that option, but sometimes what you can do is you can pencil on the back so that you can then use either tracing paper and tape it down and trace your item over it. And the same thing with this. I did this one by putting the black carbon paper. All this you can buy at Amazon. And then I outlined it with a pen or a pencil, and I took it off, and then from there I painted. Everything you see that's painted in color is painted in white first, and then I painted my color over the top of it so that it shows through. This, even though it's, pardon me?
It's painted on the front.
Painted on the front, and when I got done, I sprayed it on the front with a clear fixer. And that's why I said I got a little carried away here, because a little more.
What kind of paint?
This is acrylic paint.
Acrylic.
Thank you for asking. Acrylic paint. On the back, there's a couple of things. This one came with these little black pinch things, which worked fine for the opaque look. You can't see them through the glass. But this one with a clear glass, and I still apologize for what a mess I made. I actually used hot glue and bamboo skewers that I laid around here to hold it in. And then just recently I experimented using my bandsaw and made these little sticks. So I think the next time I'll make them a little thinner, I can use them to brace my work with.
Is that just regular glass, or is it?
This is like glass. This is regular glass. I go to Goodwill and buy myself a frame, and it's got glass in it.
But you didn't have to put a finish on this?
Yes,
She
a spray, a clear spray.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
On the glass too?
yes.
Okay.
And that's what I was apologizing about, because it's kind of rippled. You can't see it, I'm sorry.
Okay. No, I just was curious
Well,
because.
to be honest, I can't see it from here either, so I
No,
have
but
to
I'm
get
just
really
saying that
close.
I've done a better job,
Yeah.
so that's why I'm apologizing.
Well,
I-
but it kind of looked like the glass that's non-glare glass.
Okay,
So
well, that
that's-
may have been helping. I did these for the class, so when I was in a hurry trying to get these done.
They're beautiful.
Well, thank you. So, there's just different ways, and believe it or not, you can buy, again, on Amazon, you can buy white carbon. And that way you can draw on something that's black. And that will come in here later. Everybody knows about the rocks. These are just old river rocks. I made these for Rita, and she brought them in today for me. She wanted me to make her some pink ladybugs, and this I did a while ago, and it is dragonflies. And Rita, I'm gonna have you pass these around.
How do you prepare the rocks?
The rocks I prepare, if I'm going to be coloring them with a paint, I paint them white first, because if you're applying a pigment over the top, if you're applying a pigment over dark, your product is gonna be dull. So if you paint it over white, just like a canvas, your colors are gonna be nice and bright. So I paint over white first, and, or paint on white, and then, now I have done rocks, and I'll show that down here, where I have actually just painted in an area.
Kathy, do you clean the rocks with something first?
Pardon me?
Do you clean the rocks with something before you paint them?
Yeah, well, I can clean them. And sometimes I will put a finish on them, like a clear spray. There's a circumstance in which I do that, but most of the time I work with a raw rock. And after it's been cleaned. And the other thing you have to remember is that when you apply anything to that rock, when you go to, if you try to remove it, you'll get some of it. You might get almost all of it. You should not get all of it. So mistakes are not good. I'm going to pass this around because this shows where I have done this bird, and I've got an outline done in black using stencil, and an outline done with the white carbon paper. And as you can see, I did the bird first in white, then painted it. And this is on what you call veneer. They call it, some people call it slate, but slate is actually an actual aggregate. This is just veneer rock, which is flat. And there are different kinds, different names. There's stampede, there's there's bitterroot, several different kinds of names for these rocks. And they're flat as a fritter. And as you can see here, this is another tool. This is a seamstress white chalk pen. And you can hand draw what you want on that rock. This, if you can wipe it off, there's no mistake on that. You can get it completely off. But again, this is where if you wanted to hand draw what you're going to paint, this is a good item to use.
Kathy?
Yes.
They're refillable.
But
They're refillable, the white.
yeah, when you order these off of Amazon, you order your refills with them.
A lot of that stuff you can get at sewing stores.
You can.
I have a pen that like that, it comes with all different colors. Also, you can get carbon type paper that we used to use in sewing when you take one of those little
Yes.
devices, and it comes in all different colors.
Yes.
So it's not just black and white.
Yeah,
it's
for
like
anybody who
red.
does any kind of embroidery, they have.
Yeah.
But right now with Joanne's, no longer with us.
Try scrap also.
And the thing is for me, I don't want to drive around to 5-6 different locations to get 5-6 different things. And I'm sorry, I realize they say Amazon is a monopoly, but they thought out, you talk about thinking outside the box. And that's where I get most of my stuff because it's easier for me because I don't get around as well as I used to. I have some health problems, and so for me to go trudging through stores is just not viable because I end up in the hospital.
Kathy, what do you, on your little tennis shoes that are so cute, what do you use to outline the black part? Do you just use the paint, or? I'm thinking like a professional
Well,
marker
we're
would
going
be-
to show you here. I'm going to show it a little bit later, but I will try and find it. Here we go. Shirley, drum roll. Shirley and I use pencils, pens like that. And of course, I am not as good as Barb's here in front of me. She takes care of her paintbrushes like they were cherished items. And me, they're in my hair. I dunk them accidentally in my tea or my wine, leave them out and get them crusty. Never clean them up. So I'm really ashamed of myself. So you can see that this brush has really been through the ringer, but I still use it. Shirley and I, we get them online. They are a brush that fingernail, toenail technicians use. And I ordered several different brand names before I settled on this particular one. And it's cheap, it doesn't last long, but it gets the job done.
The thing about stuff with such a fine point like that is it's not gonna last a long time, so why spend a lot on it?
Yeah, I spent a lot, I also spend a lot of time like this, even when it's got paint on it. But, and a steady hand, to get your lines. But
You can make a little stand for your hand.
you can, but where I work, I have like a bracelet on the edge of what I do.
Yes, there you go.
And I do know that there are some, you can buy those braces online as well. I just said I paint the sand dollars.
Lovely.
And I go into great detail on many of them, and Shirley probably, the same thing with her. Shirley does round, beautiful, round bulbs. These are just unbelievable. I don't know, do you want me to pass these around? Okay.
Carefully, because they are.
Carefully. You can see the details she does with her work. And again, where she's painting on an object that has a curved surface, which is an optical illusion in some sense, because, I mean, even when I take pictures of my work, it looks like, well, gosh, you can't draw a straight line. Well, the line is straight, it's the surface is curved, and it's rough and it's bumpy. But Shirley just is amazing with what she does on these bulbs. And I'll pass these around again. She asked that you be very careful with them. But back to the sand dollars, and I'll pass these around. But at the very end, I would like to have this one back because I'm going to demo this one. They can be simple. And again, the process, I have a sheet of paper here that talks about the process. I go through to gessoing them, putting a sealer on them, and then I drill a hole in them, and then I paint on them. I paint on the front side and the back, then I paint the back side. But in between doing the front and the back, I spray the back first and let it dry really well before I flip it over and spray the front for the finish. Primarily because if this isn't completely dry and you've got it like this, spray the back, when you go to turn it, you peel off or you mar your work. So there is a process of this one. I had it completely finished and was ready to put the ribbon on it. Dropped it on the floor and broke it in half. And yeah, I said a bad word. But what I thought, well, okay, I'll just use this. I glued it back together, and you'll see on the one back, you can see where it's kind of rough, where I kind of puttied it back together. I'll use this as a demo for when I go places. So I'll pass these around, but yeah, you got to be careful. One of the things I do with my sand dollars that I haven't really shared when I do my class, because it's just one more step for people to worry about. But these go into a shop in Lincoln City where there are hundreds of people that go through, and they're picking and pawing over things. These ribbons keep getting untied, and so, yeah, I don't know how you can look at something and go, no. But so the people there at the shop asked if I could figure out a way of making them more permanent. So I just put a little dot of glue. And so it's like, yeah, go ahead and try and get that one apart. So that has made a difference in how well they do. And don't drop them, please. One of the other things that Shirley and I have both done, this is a shell, an oyster shell that I did for Rita. And these shells Shirley have done, and these are the ones that she's probably going to sell at the business over at the coast. These are raw shells that I picked up. There's two locations you can get them at. One is kind of about 7 miles inland in Newport. The other one is outside of Rockaway, Garibaldi. Big piles of shells because there's a processing plant. And there's shells that are just like raw and stinky. But you wade into them and you get what you need. Usually, you ask permission. I've painted them a few things and say, thank you very much. Let me take some of your shells off your hands. And one of the things I was mentioning this to you, the surface, the mother of pearl surface is the most interesting thing to paint on. It's like a baby's bottom. It's so smooth. Sometimes I have to do a little gessoing, the dark spots to kind of, so that the paint doesn't show, through the paint. I do have to clean them up. I take sometimes a steel brush on the backs because there's moss and stuff growing, and then a toothbrush to clean in here, dry it off, and then I paint directly on the surface. And again, if I take a picture of this straight on, I take that picture and with my computer, I can take the picture I took and I can place a picture over into the slot. So I can see what I want to paint, and it's the perfect size. So I'll just bring up my photo and it shows the picture I want to paint that's been placed inside that, but I'm just so clever. It really shortens things up. But some of these shells, I do actually create hanging ornaments. And again, going through mother of pearl is a little bit harder than going through a sand dollar. So sometimes it gets, that bit as you're drilling gets real hot and you can see the smoke come up. As I'm drilling through here, but I do create hanging ornaments using these shells. And again, these shells you find at the processing plants. It is a species that is considered a crop. If you find one that has managed to get free from the farm that it's embedded in the estuaries, you can get ticketed for having the possession of a oyster, a live oyster. So you can't just say, oh, look, I'll take it home with me. No, you can get ticketed for that because they belong to somebody, even though they escaped. Sand dollars, again, you can pick them up on a minus tide, a low tide. I usually get mine in Seaside off of U Street. Yes, sir.
And a bald eagle's feather, you can't.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
You can't do that.
You can't even have that. So
you get fined $10,000.
Yep, absolutely. So when you get these, they're pretty messy. They're pretty dark, and then you take them home and you clean them up.
How do you get all the sand out of them?
I sit outside with a hose and with a trickle, and I'm wearing clothes that I don't want to see again. And I will force the water through the hole. There's two holes, one is intake and one is outtake, and then I'll swish them, and I'll just keep doing that until they're fairly clean. But even after that, like I'm going through, I've got about 100 of them sitting on my counter right now that I'm preparing to work on. And as I'm picking up, they're draining out sand. So when I actually do my gessoing process, I putty up those holes because it's as you're trying to work on this, and all of a sudden your paintbrush has got grit on it because you didn't take care of business back here. So I try to make sure that the sand is out, but it will sometimes come out anyway. So anyway, U Street, minus tide, you go and you collect them, you bring them home. You do not bring home the live ones. And you can tell the live ones, they look like they're kind of furry. You turn them over, and if the little cilia legs are moving, you put them back down, and yes, they will probably die because they're supposed to be out in the ocean. But if you get caught with a live creature taking it home, it's not going to be a good thing. So I did one time end up with one in my bucket, and I did bring him home, and he did expire. But cleaning those suckers, oh my God. When they're fresh like that, it's real difficult to clean them. It's easier to get the ones that are already passed away. A lot of times the furry stuff is all gone, and it's a lot easier to process so that you'll have something to paint on. One of the things I did, and I shared it here with you, is painting on, and it's interesting, I did a little research to see what other artists, famous artists, Picasso, Gustav Klimt, Monet, all these people, did they ever paint anything besides canvas? Oh yeah, they designed furniture, they designed jewelry, they worked on pottery. Renoir painted roses on china.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you think that unless you're painting on a canvas, you're not painting, that you're not an artist, that you're a crafter. If you're using your talent to paint on an object, whether it's a wall or a clamshell, you are creating with your artistic skills, and you are an artist. And yes, there are crafters who take styrofoam and pipe cleaner and twist it around and poke it in. Crafters. But what I'm suggesting is that you can take items and use your artistic skills, and you're still an artist. And again, this is a miniature painting I did. I'm not happy with the fact that the piece of jewelry that I bought has fake diamonds all the way around it, but I couldn't find what I was looking for, which was, they come with a little canvas. And so I take the little canvas and I double tape a piece of tape, put it down, and put the little canvas down, and then I paint on that spray it to finish it, and then I'll take some Gorilla Glue and then paste it into the actual pendant. So that said, moving along, I brought this tile in that I did a few months ago. I went to Habitat for Humanity and there was this lone tile for like 50 cents. And it even looked like, if you could feel it, like there had been some use with it because it had a rough surface, like there had been some leftover mortar on it. So I picked it up for 50 cents and brought it home. I thought, what am I going to do with this? This is what I did with it. I did not add any gesso on it. I painted directly on it with my acrylic paints. Let it dry. And I thought, well, how am I going to frame this? Well, I went down on my anniversary to Palm Springs and met up with a 90-year-old couple that we were snowbirds in the desert for years with, and he did woodwork, and he said he would make me a frame. So all the way from Glendale, Arizona, this little old man in his workshop made me this frame, and it's a floating frame. And you can buy floating frames on Amazon or wherever. And he did this. He put the sawtooth on it. He did it. I'm going to try to figure out if there's some other way to hang it, but this may be it. But he asked me to take and trace around this tile, which you can see has got ripples and it's shaped. So it's not like it was perfectly 12 by 6. So I drew around it, sent him the drawing, and he cut out the frame to fit exactly for this tile. Sent it to me, and then I hot glued it in.
Oh,
Now, some of the floating frames, they come with like a Velcro. I tried using double-sided Velcro on this, but it wouldn't stick. So I figured it would fall out. So I went ahead and did the hot glue. And I always say, spray paint and hot glue is a girl's best friend. So anyway, I'm not sure how many people have friends in Arizona that can do this for them, but this is just an example of what you can do with a tile. You could maybe find floating frames or another kind of frame, but this worked absolutely perfect. I'm not going to pass this around. You can come up and look at it. This is too precious for me to have somebody accidentally drop it.
why is it called a floating frame?
Because this floats on top of it, basically.
Oh.
It's secured by glue or something, but it's called a floating frame. This man, for many years when we were snowbirding down there, he and I every year would do a painting together. He approached me out of nowhere and said, I understand you do art because I'd like to learn to paint. So every year we sat side by side and painted a picture. It was great. We're going to get back to the boxes now. Again, I go to Goodwill and find really bad looking boxes or some halfway decent looking boxes. This is a bamboo box that I picked up for $5 at Goodwill. It was 50% off. It was a red day. And this, I haven't decided what I'm going to do with it yet. But just to show you what you can get, I have painted on saws. Shirley has painted on saws. This is a tin, a vintage tin. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it, but again, I picked this up at the Goodwill. Did I say Red Cross? No. Okay, all right. This is a jewelry box that I picked up at Goodwill. And this is one that I did while I was in the desert. Had my card table out. Roadrunners, literally roadrunners running around, little rabbits. And I drew this on paper. And after I spray painted it black, I used the white tracing paper to trace my design, and very carefully did my peacock.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And thought, well, you know what? I'm not going to sell that. I'm going to keep that. Now, I've done music boxes. You go to Goodwill and you find an old nasty music box. I have literally taken them apart. They don't work. I've got special oil. I have brought them back to life. I have reseated them inside the box. I have redone the box. This particular one was in really nasty shape. It had no feet. So when you turned this and it played, the whole box went around. So, no kidding. So I took, believe it or not, 2 buttons on each foot and stacked them, glued them together, painted them, and then took some felt and created the feet. So now it will play music.
Oh, jeez.
And in here, maybe I'll just take it out. If I can. No, I can't. So I'll do this. Anyway, I painted this on, oh, it did come out, okay. This is a piece of wood. Or no, excuse me. This was the actual backing in this, because it has these little slide things here. And so I put some gesso on it, and I painted by painting my scene on that, and then slipped it in here. We'll get it later. And the same with this box. This is not a music box. This is one where I actually took wood that I sawed into the shape that I wanted. And painted my scene on it. This is the backing that came with it. And then reseated it in here. The bottom is a piece of heavy cardboard. I can use fabric, I can use felt, but I have discovered, if you haven't already, aerosol glue. And so what I'll do is I'll take and I'll spray the cardboard, and then I'll lay the fabric over the top, which I have made cut a little bit bigger, so, and then when it's all dry, and it'll go on and it'll look, oh my gosh, the glue does kind of come through, but then it dries. And then I'll take a scissor and trim it down. And then I've done satin, I've done all different kinds of colors in there. So been able to put the bottoms in there. I didn't do a bottom in the music box because there was no doing that. Now, let's see, what else I can show you? Oh, in the photos that I passed around, you saw the one where there was a fish on a piece of board. That was a floating piece of driftwood that I found in a reservoir. Brought it home, let it sit out in the sun for several days, cleaned it up, and painted that little scene on it. Well, we were fishing here a couple months ago, and I brought home some soggy wet pieces of wood, and I'll pass these around. They were real heavy at first because they were just leaded with water, and now I've got these very old-looking pieces and with interesting features, and then I'll paint on these as well. So whenever, wherever I go, I'm always looking for stuff. And my sister, one time, we were on a trip to California. She couldn't figure why I had to come back from the rest area. And she's waiting in her car. And I was digging around in the bushes looking for something to paint on. But I'm sorry, it's just a habit. So one of the things we were talking about is the painting on the flat rock, which is one of my favorite things to do. I have done pieces that are this tall, this wide, that have a heron on them. I have done several entryway. In fact, I think Mike bought one of them. Didn't you, Mike?
I did.
And they're entryway stones that say welcome, and I've got, I think, a picture of them in there. But I also do smaller pieces that are like conversation pieces you can have on a desk or on a mantle or something. This one I did, and again, I'm always amazed at how flat Mother Nature can be. And I buy these little stands at Dollar Tree and sell them this way. For a long time, for about a year or two, I was doing cave art. And these are kind of taken from some of the, like the Cheval Caves in France, some of the pictures that they have, and I have replicated them because I just think they're so cool. And again, are you gonna judge these people from a million years ago that they aren't real artists? When you see the work that they have done on those cave ceilings and walls. So again, this is another
Is that
interesting.
called hieroglyphics?
No,
Rock art.
they're called, they're called petroglyphs. Petroglyphs, and then also, I think there's another term for some of the more sophisticated stuff, but yeah, it's just, the guy who discovered the Cheval Caves, they wouldn't believe him. And then they accused him of doing it. But they now, they're so protected that there's only so many people if they let them in at all, because just the human breathing and the going into those things is causing deterioration to some of the walls. So, getting back to some of these pieces, these were always fun. I'm always amazed at how Mother Nature sometimes hands me on a platter the most perfectly shaped little rocks that can be used for a tennis shoe or an Easter egg. But I'm always on the lookout when I can. Private property that I've gotten permission to grub around on. In fact, there was a lady that her and her husband were doing some excavation in their front yard, and I was noticing all these rocks. So I pulled in and I knocked. You don't know me. And I said, but I was wondering if you would be willing to part with some of your rocks. Sure, go ahead. So I went in, and I'm not ashamed. I'm not as shy, because you know what? He who hesitates.
I have a
So,
question.
pardon me?
Can you share with us where you get your flat rocks?
Okay. Clackamas Landscaping. May they rest in peace. They closed. So there's another place that I haven't totally investigated. I mean, I have a lot of rock at home, so I'm not hurting for flat rock right now. But one of the places is out in Boring.
Yeah.
Is that where it's at? It's called
Yeah.
Boring Rock. That's another place I'm gonna go and investigate. But basically you look for a rock landscape place. Yes, Betty?
I was gonna say, it's not advisable to go by the public river or stream.
No. And that's what I said, that's what I said, I'm knocking on doors. I think I told the story once before, we were at the Badlands, and where is that, North Dakota, whatever. And I'm standing there looking at the Badlands, and I'm looking down. You know, you find money that way too. And I found these very interesting little shaped rocks. They were almost like, I think, well, they probably were quartz, but they were just so interesting shaped, and I'm picking them up, looking at them, putting them in my pocket, and as I stand up, there was this sign in front of me, $500 fine. So I'm like going, I mean, I'm not trying to take anything intentionally, but you know, sometimes I get carried away. But I have literally knocked on strangers' doors, and sometimes I'll show up with a sand dollar and I'll say, I'll trade you a sand dollar for letting me look on your property for rock. I mean, this is what I did when I went and did got the oyster shells at this one particular place out of Newport. I walked in with a sand dollar, and people are always then pretty delighted to accommodate you. Thank you. Yeah, I do have, like I said, ingredients here to make it the impasto paste, and you have some instructions here for sand dollars. The impasto? This.
The mix.
Oh,
Just a recipe for the pasta medium.
yeah, it's not a secret recipe, it's online. You can do a DIY on YouTube, and they'll show you how to make it and how to use it. One of the things I'm going to do, oh, and by the way, how many people do use Amazon? All right, and you get these sheets of paper that they've used to stuff with. I roll them out, flatten them out on my living room floor, and I cut them up. I'm trying to be as sustainable as I can, and I use these for my projects, rather than crumple them up and stick them in the recycle bin. I try to actually use them. Okay, I'm gonna do like a little bit of a demonstration here on a sand dollar and also on this box. Now, sometimes you gotta be careful. You buy something, it looks pretty old. Take a picture of it, find out what it's worth before you paint on it.
Yeah.
This particular box does have a little bit of value, but it's in such crappy shape that it's probably worth maybe 15, 20 bucks. It was held wine, it was from abroad. And so one of the, and it's a pretty rickety shape, but I thought, you know, that's perfect. It's sort of like that frame that Sarah had here several months ago, and I said I wanted that frame. It was so distressed, but it fit her painting perfectly. So sometimes distressed items are really what you want. So one of the things I do when I get one of these, I clean them up as best I can. The area in which I'm going to paint, I usually try to sand down a little bit, rough it up. I take a ruler and I map out where I want to put my tape. Take my tape and lay it down. And as you saw in that very first photograph, we had 4 different pictures. That tape stays on, but it's coming up here, but it's down where it needs to be. And I gesso it. Now, you can apply gesso in a number of different ways. You can use your fingers, which you'll see in a while. You can use a sponge, which is what I used on this right here. Or you can use a brush. I'll pass this around, showing you what they could possibly look like. Now, that wasn't supposed to happen. I put my fingers in it by accident. I'm going to brush this. I've already brushed part of it, and it's dry, and that's because that's the side I'm going to demo on. But just to show you, you just paint it and or gesso it, and you might have to gesso it like here at the top. I gessoed it a couple of times, and that was so that I could actually make sure that I had covered the wording on it. And the wording was a little bit recessed. And that was one of the reasons why you need to sand it. You can buy sanding blocks. You can use sanding paper. Or you can just leave it as rough as you want. The rougher it is, the more difficult it's going to be to paint.
And it tears up your paintbrush just to paint on a rough surface.
Yes, it is. So, after you get this done and dried, you have an option. You can take a pencil, you can draw, sketch what you want to paint, and then paint. Or you can, but if you don't feel comfortable with that, because sometimes when you go to erase on gesso, it doesn't work so well. So what I did was I went on the computer. I have an idea what I want on this. This is a vintage box for wine, Bordeaux. I am put together kind of a scene with some strategic placement of certain things. There's going to be a whole lot of background going on here, grape leaves and whatnot. But what I'll do here is put this down exactly where I want it. It should fit right into where my, there we go, right like that. And usually what I'll do is, this is of course wet down here, but I'll tape it. And I usually cut the paper so that it is the right size, so when I tape it, I'm not taping over the carbon paper. And then I will just take a pencil and I'll draw or trace where I want things. And as you can see, you have your apple here. So you can get your kind of your basic design on there, not in full detail, but just enough for placement. I don't know how many times I've painted something, God, if I just had that moved over an inch, it would look so much better. So that's why I try to make sure that when I'm either drawing or stenciling over something, and it doesn't even have to be something that I have cut out. or paste it over like the grapes and the perfect bottle and the perfect. I'll draw, like the peacock, that was all hand drawn. And I'll do a lot of hand drawn things, but I still prefer to be a little bit more exact, so I will do the initial tracing to get it on there. And then just slowly work it. When it's done, I take the tape off, and then I'll spray it with a clear spray. Let it sit. Now this, as you can see, is pretty rough. So what am I gonna do with it? Am I gonna spray over the top of that? We'll see. I'm not sure. I think it'll look funny with kind of a shiny top. So I might actually spray it a little bit. Or I could even do a little bit more distressing with a different color, more a woodsy kind of a paint, using a sponge or something and, you know, detail it. Or I could, you saw the picture that had the cheese box. Yeah, I did the sides, I did the lid, and so I actually went all the way around it with something, and the same thing with the jewelry box. Now for the sand dollar class that I was teaching, I pretended this was a sand dollar to show people what they could do. And so this is just white gesso on glass. And then I painted this in the bird. And I have painted this in a sand dollar before, and it turned out really nice. But this just gives you an idea what you can do on a surface. And you can't put anything hot on this. People, oh, can I like put my hot, no, you don't want to put hot on art. And before I get to my next demonstration, I'm going to ask people, do you know what this is?
Pine cone.
This is the very tiny tip of a cone that comes off of a Cedra deodora tree. The cone comes on looking like a pineapple, and when it eventually develops, this is the very top of it, and it will pop off. And I call them my wooden roses. And depending upon the tree, I've got some that are this big. I do take after a while, I'll take a tweezer and I'll go in between here and pull out the seeds, so I just have the wood.
All right, did you find this in Arizona, or where did you find
No, around here.
Oh, they're around here.
Yes, you gotta look for them. And you have to knock on doors. And then usually they'll go, oh, please, because they've got so many of them, they wanna get rid of them.
Never
So
saw that before.
Yeah, I've seen this.
I have painted them and made real roses. I had a little girl come into the house one time. She walked over, she bent over, and she smelled it. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was wood. And you can, and then I have bought floral leaves, you know, fake floral leaves, and have created these things, and I've made these for people for place settings. And I've included a little prong thing that holds where they can say their name, you know, for where they sit. So there's all different things you can do with those roses. Okay, right now I'm gonna kind of hopefully show you, at least part way show you, painting a sand dollar. And there's no one way to do anything, as Shirley and all you know. We all paint differently. People use brushes. I love my fingers. And one of the things I always recall was a painting I did that my little grandmother or granddaughter was sitting there. She said, Grandma, are you ever going to use a paintbrush? I go, yes, I'll get there eventually. But I find that I have a lot of control, come on, using my fingers. And not yet. And you folks saw the sand dollar that I did that had the pink ocean, or the blue ocean, and the pink sky in the back. Okay. I'll bring it over here so I can work with it. I start at the top, and I use pink and white. And as you know, the pink is darker on the top and graduates to a lighter color at the bottom, and I do that first by and I try to get the edges. Wipe my fingers off, get a little bit of pink going here, or a little bit of white, and I slowly create a variegation in color. Now something else you can do, I'm going to add a little bit more darker here. If you wanted to make this a little bit more, and I hope it works when I do this, I say this and now it's not going to work. I take a little bit of blue, and I mean a little bit of blue, just a dot. That's too much. That's too much. Just and I just create a little bit of a purple to it.
Oh, nice.
So your sunset is a little. So I was going to have Rita take this out and dry it for me. I have a hair dryer right around the corner, but I think I'll see if I can do this, because usually I want to hang on to it right here. Now I want to do the water. And the blue I'm using is, and you can use any blue you want, but this particular blue is, it goes unnamed.
Looks like phthalo blue, right?
Yes, it is. It is. Thank you.
Is that Artist Lock blue?
It's Liquitex Basics.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Artist Lock, but it's,
Okay.
Oh, both of them,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, because I can actually get Artist Lock paint at my
and if you want
Yes.
to, again, you have a lot of control with my fingers. Get it right up to the top here. And get it down over the edges. And usually then I'll let it dry. And then I'll go in with a paintbrush. Paintbrush, where are you? Of course, there has to be water in there, but there isn't. And I'll very carefully stripe in some waves. Add a little more dark to it, until I have a kind of a nice variation in color. And then I'll go in and do a little bit more waves. I'll go home and redo this, but this gives you the idea. You can just, and then after it's dry, I'll take a pencil and I'll draw my sketch in my, and I'll take it below the water line. And then on the other side, a little smaller one.
You can see that.
You saw that. Take my black. Am I taking up enough time here, or am I?
We should probably finish up in a minute or two.
I got what?
Got a minute or two.
Okay. And then I will paint in the silhouette of my island here, or peninsula, whatever it happens to be. I'm only going to do one side here, and I'm not going to do a very good job of it, but because next I'm going to want to do, okay, where's my tiny brush? I'm going to want to do my trees. And I'll take and draw a straight line, straight line, straight line. And then I'll just go in and just zigzag across until I get my trees. And usually I do a much better job than this.
Can I see
But-
how you're doing that tree?
And then at the end, in between here, I want to have couple of seagulls. So that is where I'll go in and do a seagull. Yes, I licked that and had paint on it. And sometimes I'll go over it with a little bit of dark on the tips of the wings. And then create that. And then after that's all done, I will then flip it over. It's dry. I'll do the back. I'll do it like a solid black or something, and then I'll let it dry, hair dryer. And then after it's completely dry, then I will position it over. I will position it over, usually something like this. Spray it, let it until it's completely dry. Flip it, spray it again until it's completely dry, and then I'll string a ribbon through it.